Audio test, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me over there? Okay, so the audio's going out. Let's go check the. Not getting it for the stream. Yeah, those are different places.
That's fine then too.
I will. Goodbye.
Because we're updating. If I give all the.
Becoming more intimate with that book recently.
are.
I wish I wasn't, but
Hey, this is like my sixth. This is my sixth dissertation. This is the sixth book that I've read.
Oh, you brought treats?
I brought.
Gloria, hallelujah. We tried to find a cookie, me and Sean. And we couldn't find a cookie.
So when I listened to the recording last time, you actually putting this together. I did not hear that. Lorraine does these. Exactly. Take credit for something.
Oh, well, that's okay, we like it. I actually do have a cookie.
All of ours, these are strawberries.
These are cookies.
Ooh, yum. That's awesome.
Yeah. They're chocolate cookies. So. Stop, you bring it down.
February 7th, 2020.
I can't start.
that's sorry. I'm in shock because I thought.
Grab the recorder.
I wonder what's the value.
Start it yet?
Let's see, what's the value?
Trying to buy some mascara.
Still following the plan.
Can't do anything, can I? I'm handcuffed. There's only B, that's definitely not a quorum. I've got two, we just need one more. Is Michelle there?
Well, I don't know. I don't think she was dialing in. I don't think she was dialing in.
She's not dialing in?
I'm in.
I thought so. There you go. This isn't right. It's an old one. It's Joe.
That was way old.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Michelle. I'm sorry you're sick.
Well, it takes me a while to get off mute. Hi, Laura.
Okay, since we have three, we're going to start. Okay? So we're sorry we're a little bit late. We were waiting for a quorum. We're happy you're at finance or however you want to say it. We like to do introductions first, so why don't we start in the back this way and go this way across and introduce yourself. So,
Kevin John, audit for the state.
Voorhees Assistant Superintendent of Student Support.
Jesse Daniel. Oh, you're Representative Daylark? Okay, thank you.
Eric Tadahara, substitute. Matt Rager.
Brett Balthazar, School Finance Auditor.
And I think, should we just, do you want to introduce our new?
Yes.
And then we can have that?
So Patrick, will you stand up?
Yes.
This is Patrick Lee. He's our new school finance director. I mean, I'll probably be introducing him in every meeting just to call him out from here for a whole year. So he just loves that type of stuff, so.
And so for this
Glad you're
group,
here.
you want to tell us where you came from a little bit? I think that's always helpful.
So I, for background, I've been with the state about 16 years. Health, where I started with the state as a data. I worked about 4 years at the Legislative Fiscal Analyst Office. I also did some time with agencies, and I was brought over to the governor's office for about a year to do the same thing. I was approached by the insurance department, and have been their finance director for the last 7.5 years. So here now, glad to be here. Grew up in Oklahoma and went to high school in California, so I'm Okafornian, I guess, and I've been in here in Utah for a while. And it's I'll be a part of it. So
What
thanks.
do you call yourself?
Okafornian.
Okay, you got all three of them in there, didn't you? That's awesome. Okay, and then Tammy? She's in charge of everything. Okay, so we're glad you're here with us, and we're gonna start with, oh, what do we have under this? Is this, I don't, 8.1. It's on our Medicaid billing that we've been working on. So, Scott, did you want to give some background on this, or?
Actually, yes. if you could- We have, our assistant superintendent Voorhees come forward. Also, Emma? No. Let's see, what you can. Sir, what's your, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, so just pull an extra chair, I'll get. So, if, Finance Committee members will recall, we brought this up, initially as an agenda item last month, really to go over, where we've progressed since we made the report, the joint effort report to public education appropriations back in August or October, August or October, it's one of those months, they don't blend together now. So, one of the key discussion points was the 180 minutes. So I think we need to start there at your direction, Chair, just, you know, because that's what you, the Finance Committee wanted, was us to
Right.
follow up on that key point and then bring that back to you by way of Leah. So
Okay.
if, on Leah.
No, that's okay. Miss Leah.
Thank you. So I did a search on USB rule to find out if a rule needed to be changed in order for Medicaid to be billed. Like, a rule need to be changed on our end. If we had a rule prohibiting Medicaid being billed for students who were receiving less than 180 minutes of specially designed instruction and related services, and the answer simply is no. So where I did some digging, where I think the 180 minutes came from is at the time, a threshold needed to be set for eligibility criteria for when to bill Medicaid and when not to bill Medicaid. And I think R277419 was where the threshold came from. Because 277419 delineates that if a student with a disability has 180 minutes or more of specially designed instruction and related services on his or her IEP, then that student receives a self-contained WPU. And if the student has less than that, 179 or fewer, the student receives the add-on WPU. So it's a very simple threshold. It's in statute, it's in your rule. I think
But it
it's
wasn't
very-
Medicaid connected.
It's not connected at all to Medicaid. But it's a very easy threshold to go, look, we already have this threshold, let's cut and paste it into this situation. So none of your rules have to be changed.
So are you gonna use that threshold? Or are you not gonna use that?
So that's question number 2, which is where we're headed. Scott, do you wanna?
So the reason why this is an action item is because it really is at the board's direction on whether or not we're gonna use it. I feel, right? My understanding and feedback that I've got since I obviously haven't spent years on this or been associated with the 180-minute rule for very long, but what my understanding is that LEAs say that not prohibitive but restrictive maybe, by having it, it doesn't allow for additional students to get services that could result in the drawdown of Medicaid funds. So that's step 1 or step 2, like Leah was saying, is, for us as staff to request your direction on this. Now, you may want to wait until you hear the remainder of the presentations as they are given to you today before entertaining any kind of motion or anything on that. But that's really step 1 or 2 of this agenda item. Is first, we come back to you as you requested or directed, with where it all resides, the 180-minute rule. Then also, or not rule, 180 minutes criteria, I guess is the best word. And subject to further input from all of the different subject matter experts here, decide on to ensure that it's put out there by.
Okay, I
Well,
wanna
we-
ask a couple of questions before we do our presentations. Are the funds from Medicaid varied depending on the amount of time? Is there nothing varied? So a student who is receiving, 40 minutes versus 180 can put in for Medicaid, that it would be the same amount to the district?
So the way that it's billed currently is that there's a rate that's been set, which is fundamentally set by taking the cost to render the service. Oh yeah, my name is Matthew Ahern. I'm with the Bureau of Managed Healthcare with Medicaid, and I oversee the school-based program on our side of the business. But the rate is basically set by taking the cost to render the service to the students and effectively dividing that by the number of students that participate, and then dividing that again by the number of days in the school year. And so it's basically a capitation based on the cost applied on a per student per day of attendance level. So if they bill a service, if they receive a service in the billing period, which might be a month, they can bill us for every date of attendance. So if one student is receiving 180 minutes and one student is receiving 40, in this structure, it's all the same because it all goes into the wash of the cost of rendering services. It's equalized that way.
At 40 minutes, they might be in this
Yeah.
pay period and not in this pay period.
Against the overall cost, and so it more evenly distributes it that way.
Cost to render to the number of students and then the number of days.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, and then are there any federal guidelines that have any jurisdiction over this of the out minutes?
So related to IDEA, no. So
Not related to Medicaid either.
Okay, those were my questions. Do you have some yet, or do you want to hear the presentations? Okay,
So from this point, what we want to do is we want to go forward with, and at some point, see if Lark wants to come forward and get OEA input about where we're headed with, or, as a result of what was told for us to do is to come back and report. We made recommendations. So we've covered the 180-minute rule. In your backups, there's a presentation document for, let's see, titled New School-Based Payment Model Proposal, right? So I think for the benefit of the group and the Finance Committee, I think we need to start there. So now I'll turn it back over to them at your direction, Chair, to present a new school-based payment model proposal.
okay. Who's going to talk to this?
Maybe I'll start.
Okay,
And I'm-
introduce yourself
yes.
again.
I'm Emma Chacon. I'm the Operations Director for Medicaid. And I think what we're here today, and we appreciate the opportunity to speak before this committee, is to really lay out a number of potential changes that we could be making to draw down funding to offset some of the costs of providing services to schools. So there are a number of items. The 180 minutes is one of them. The other issue that we need to look at is the process right now that we use for the schools accounting for their time to draw down funds for their administrative costs related to this program. And I'll turn some of the time over to Matt in just a moment, but right now we have an agreement with Jordan School District, who is acting as a liaison, I guess, with all the other school districts, and also a contractor who's actually responsible for handling the time study process, which is required by CMS and the Medicaid program. And
CMS?
oh, I'm sorry, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. I'm sorry, we all talk in acronyms. I
I know that,
apologize.
that's why I
And
know that.
Medicaid's famous for it. So they are a federal agency that basically we draw down the federal match from. And so one of the items that we wanted to address with you today is how to proceed and how to go forward with this issue of replacing the time system that we're using for accounting for administrative time. We're at the end, I guess, of the contract with company that is also referred to as CMS, and they're the contractor that is with Jordan School District who handles the time study process. And we have heard and we're aware that Jordan School District would also potentially like to maybe get out of being the conduit of all of this responsibility for the Medicaid claiming. And so we have a couple of recommendations around that. We've talked about the 180-minute rule, which Scott has helped to lay out. The other item that we would like to address that's related to the 180-minute rule is that Utah is the last, I guess, state in the country that actually uses the current bundled payment methodology that we have to reimburse school districts in the school-based skills development program. And so we've been talking actually for several years with stakeholders about the fact that we really need to change that methodology. And so we have a recommendation around that, and at a high level, just to talk about some timeframes and what the potential impact would be for the LEAs in terms of, you know, what adjustments they might have to make in order to move to a different type of basically payment methodology for the schools. And the reality is that our federal agency is most likely to basically instruct us to change the methodology. They have not done that yet, but again, we're the last state in the nation that uses the methodology that we use, and it's not a methodology that is favored by the federal government. So we'd like to talk about that. And then also, as part of the report that we jointly put together, and it was in August actually, that we submitted to the Education Interim Committee, there was also some discussion about how do we increase the availability of Medicaid funding in the schools for mental health services for children who don't have an IEP, and also for physical health services for just the children as a whole in the schools. So we also wanted to touch on that just a bit as well. But I think I'll turn the time over to Matt just to briefly touch on the Medicaid administrative claiming RFP that's, I guess, we're sort of on hold with right now at this point, and some recommendations in terms of, I guess the question is, should it be the USBE that moves forward on that RFP, or does it make more sense to have Medicaid actually be responsible for moving forward on that RFP and administering that and allowing the school districts to utilize that tool? So we have some discussion around that, and then to talk about the time frame for removing the 180 minutes and working towards establishing a new cost reimbursement methodology. So can you just talk about that briefly now?
Sure. To start with the RFP process for the Medicaid administrative claiming. As you're aware, the school districts and LEAs can bill Medicaid for direct care services actually being rendered to the students. The administrative claiming is a way that they can draw down 50% federal match for administrative functions and activities that they use to help run the program. So the direct care, so there's two different pathways of money. Direct care is at a different match, 70-30 roughly, and then 50-50 for the administrative claiming. So as part of that, there's a requirement for a vendor to administer a time study, basically to figure out what proportion of their time is allocatable to administrative functions. We also use that for what proportion of the time is allocatable to the direct care services. It helps us to do this for administrative, and then it helps us to take that other money, that other proportion to do our cost settlement for the direct care services. So then in addition to that, they need to develop a process to do a full cost allocation on salaries, benefits, other types of costs, to build basically a cost structure for the MAC claiming, for the administrative claiming. Right now, Jordan is the lead district. We, as Medicaid, have a contract with Jordan School District as a lead agency, and then Jordan has a contract with each of the participating districts and LEAs, and it's a three-way contract with those districts and a third-party vendor who is CMS Inc., different than CMS, the federal agency, who does all the time studies, handles the cost allocation, and all of that process right now. Due to some concerns with Jordan not necessarily being interested in doing this further, we've had some concerns because we don't have a direct contract with each of the districts. And there had been some concerns that the current process for time study and cost allocation were out of date and not in compliance with current federal guidance. And so we wanted to relook at how to do this. We decided that maybe the best way to do it was to totally do a new time study process and to revamp the cost allocation structure. We met with CMS, the federal agency. They gave us the direction to move away from our current time study process to a random moment time study, which would be a revamped, completely different process. And so we engaged with the USBE because this was the original vendor was brought on due to an RFP that was done by the collective of districts on the school side, and it's been managed on the school side. We don't have a contract with that vendor. So we met with the USBE. They had said they'd be willing to go ahead and collectively do this RFP on behalf of the districts to find a new vendor that would be able to put in place the random moment time study, the new change time study, and a restructured cost allocation methodology to be in line with federal guidance right now. So that's the guidance that we got. That said, as we were looking at this, there has been a relatively recent December 2018 published findings from the federal DHHS OIG with publishing their concerns about the use of random moment time studies for allocating costs for school-based Medicaid. So that's one of the concerns that we ran into, and some of the guidance that came from CMS is they still want us to go in the direction of random moment time study, but they feel like we need to make sure we're putting in good structure in place to oversee the program, and they'll be working to publish further guidance on exactly how to use this going forward. So our recommendation is that whoever's doing the RFP, make sure that the bidders have to, as part of their RFP bid, address each of the specific findings from the DHHS OIG study, and how they would be able to address those things and prevent it. But it is going to require ongoing oversight and kind of close consideration as they look at it.
I guess, again, just to follow up with that, the question that I think we would like your input on, and I guess ultimately the decision is, would the board prefer to have USBE or a designated, again, another designated LEA, or would it make more sense for Medicaid to be responsible for that RFP? We're happy to go either way as long as the RFP basically is in compliance with federal regulations, which is what we'll all want, because we will not want the federal government coming back and trying to pay money back from. So that is the first question: is to proceed.
So many questions.
I would think that we would have to vet which avenue would be most effective and cost effective and efficient. That would be critical to making a decision. Just with all this information now, it's a lot to digest. I think critical look as to which avenue should be cost effective.
So I'm on the same path, so I'm gonna just follow. So Leah, I'm going to you, but if we create an RFP, does it matter where it's created? Whether it's here or at Medicaid, as long as it follows guidelines that you would probably work together on. Would that be a correct assumption that the RFP the question's going to be asked and we would set up together?
I would defer that question to Zach, actually.
Okay, so, and then to follow, because the backside of that is if we, so,
Here's the situation that, I'm looking at the contract with Jordan is expiring. And they're soon, so we need already, I'm not sure exactly how we have to take that. So what prompted this was Jordan was saying, well, we don't want to renew the contract. And then we also have to make consideration of, depending on which direction we go with Medicaid, that we may need to extend that contract. But Zach can speak out to all that, so Zach, will you cover those?
he can't cover all that because I can't absorb it, yes, Matt.
I know.
Okay, I have to go through one piece at a time because I'm
Okay,
trying to put
okay.
all these pieces together with these
Sure,
acronyms. Okay, so if that's okay, if we're going to talk about the RFP, could the RFP be created with the two entities together and it doesn't really matter who runs the RFP?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so.
We could definitely do a joint RFP with Health and USP.
Okay, so then, following back up, does it make a difference who awards the RFP? If the USPE awards the RFP, then we would need to run it.
To run it.
Run the, I wrote it down.
Side of the contract.
That would be something we would have to develop into the scope of work as we're creating the RFP to say, this is what USBE will do, this is what the Department of Health will do. And just so it's very clear as we put it out for vendors to bid on, that it's, you know, this is what each organization is expected to do and how they would contribute to overall contract.
Okay, so then when it's done, whether it's run under the Medicaid or run here, how is that going to affect our districts in what they have to do or what monies they would receive?
So I'm not entirely sure if I can answer
I'm
all of
not
that.
entirely sure I'm asking the right question.
Can I wait? Can I help you?
Yes, yes. This is
So
so
maybe
good.
we're all on the same page.
Okay,
In this agenda item, and it was last month, and now it's going back. What problem? What's the end? What do we want in the end? Reverse engineering. And as we're going about putting this together, we're the victims along the way. As we put this together, we're sitting there going, what we're trying to do, because this contract with Gordon, we don't want to we don't want to renew it. Oh, but we might have to renew it. And I'm like, okay, who's holding what hostage is through this whole process? And then I'm trying to find out, trying to measure here. We take point, someone else take point on that, and then what are the consequences of that
okay.
decision? So I'm not seeing that pathway to success. All these variables, and then with this RFP, and then as we're rolling this out, is there something new that's going to be attached to it that our LEAs are going to have to change the sandbox? Yes, and it looks like it's a yes. So there's serious stuff when you change the sandbox. And what is that? And how do we go about changing that? Has nothing to do with the RFP. And so I'm getting a lot of stuff mixed.
It is,
Here, sir,
because
and I'm
if we
trying
wanted
to
to move
sort
the
it.
180 minutes, then we already are changing quote unquote the sandbox for the district. That's already a done deal because that's how they financially get their money. So if
Change.
just that,
Yes. It's reinventing the world. And I'm sitting there going, how far is this really gonna? Is this a simple task? Is it a very complicated task? But I don't want to create those unintended consequences. So I'm going to even take this to another step. So this is actionable. I'm saying, okay, what kind of action finance take the whole board to correct what? And I can't get my hands around exactly what we're trying to accomplish. That's just me as one.
no, I think I think we're all swimming
board
in this.
member, and it's like we could, we should.
So if we had three things we're looking at, if I could put it down, at a new RFP because of CMS Inc., put it out,
Well, no,
not because of them.
hold it. Right now, right now, are we in a happy place? The answer is so what does it take, like, to get to that compliance happy place? Plus, on top of that, we have this contract with Gordon that's adding to, you're feeling the rocks getting on your shoulder
yeah.
and your back now.
Yeah,
And so I'm sitting there going, okay, what rock do I take out first? I'm using lots of,
yeah.
now it's just trying want to make a very good decision.
Well, we're playing in the sandbox with big rocks.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to figure out what is the first priority.
Right, I don't know what it is, or
Here.
maybe it all has to come together at the same time.
So if I could,
It's coming to me with a lot of really good acronyms and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, like, who's driving what to what
We
reason.
need simple, Emma.
so
We
let
need
me try to be simple, and I will start by saying there's nothing ever simple about Medicaid. But anyhow, so I think the reality is we have a contract that's coming to an end of its period, so we need to do something, and that's with CMS Inc. We have an LEA who's been responsible for that contract, who would like to, our understanding is we'd like to get out of that business. So one way or the other, an RFP has to be done, because we have to do something with CMS Inc. because they're at the end of their contract. I don't believe the contract can be extended at this point, right, with CMS Inc. Or maybe there's another.
Not this
Can it
contract.
be extended?
We don't hold that contract, Jordan does, so Jordan would have to
to do
Well,
that.
we keep hearing somebody from Jordan or somebody who has spoken to Jordan School District who said they do not want to do this anymore. You have, okay, thank you.
Let's assume that they don't want to do it
That,
anymore.
yes, so now we.
And it expires by a certain
Okay,
date.
so
You have to get somebody
when
on
is
board.
that?
So those dates are CMS Inc., who's the time study and cost allocation vendor. Their contract expires contract expires June 30th, 2020. Our contract with Jordan as a lead agency expires December 31st, 2021. So in terms of any sort of RFP process, I don't believe it's feasible to really have anything in place by June 30th, 2020. It seems to me that we could potentially accomplish it by extending that out a year. It gives us a little more time to work with this. And then it stays within the range that is already on Jordan's contract.
But that would have to be up to Jordan.
That would have to be up to,
extend
well,
CMS's
Jordan would, yeah, that would be up to Jordan to extend that contract.
And then, well, that's a concern. The other issue is that our federal agency, that we draw down the federal Medicaid funds from, is basically, we will need to implement a different time study process. This is going to be their directive. So again, this becomes one of those issues where if we want to draw down the Medicaid funding to provide to the LEAs, we're going to have to change the sandbox.
But not, but we could go until December of 21.
We could go another year. That is our recommendation, is that we try to draw it out until December of 21 to give, whether it's a joint RFP or a USBE or a Medicaid RFP, to give us all a chance to work through that, to make a decision about who's going to actually, administer that contract, and to get this all replaced all in the same time frame. So the contract with Jordan would end at the end of December. The contract with CMS Inc. would end at the same time period, and we'd have a new vendor ready to start, essentially. So that's our recommendation, and we don't have strong feelings either about whether it's us or USBE or whether it's a joint contract or a joint RFP, but we would want to make sure that the RFP reflected the requirements of the federal Medicaid program. Otherwise, we don't want to all shoot ourselves in the foot by not getting it out
No,
there.
I can see that. But so right now you have Jordan who has the contract with the CMS Inc. And Jordan has relationships or contracts with districts. And so if Jordan jumps out, who steps there?
That's the question.
And so it's either here or here.
Or it's a joint.
I think we would want to contract directly with each of the districts, so that we avoid that
Middle person.
liaison sort of middle person. But in terms of who's going to oversee or manage the structure of the time study vendor, that's the question.
I
got something.
I don't have it solved, but so we visit this by the timeline. So December 2021, we have to have something in place. That something is going to be different than what we were doing today. So as we do this, just back out from December 2021, all the players, you folks, USBE, the LEAs, have got to know, okay, as of December 21, sandbox changed, the rules, the playground, or however we want to do it, have all changed. And so we've got to have a little time. We have to have time to form and train and everybody about managing everyone's expectations. And with this subject right here, compliance is everything. We want to make sure the flow of money works, but there's an expectation on the LEA that we're going to have to navigate with some changes. Which I think we can all do. So I can just move in this up to September, August, July. The LAs have got to know this by a certain time.
But Mark, are we in a dilemma even with December? Are we in a dilemma because they were mid-school?
So that's what I'm trying to find out here, because we start
If I may, I think, so to some degree, the RFP for the time studies and cost allocation process is a bit of a separate track, but it does dovetail in with a rollout of the removal of the 180 minutes and new payment model, with the implementation of the full payment model change. That would probably be the end date rather than December 31st, 2021. So I don't know if it would be helpful to kind of walk through this proposed sort of timeline, to see how these blocks fit into the other payment model changes.
You brought up there's tracks, there's several pathways, several tracks that we've got to be on all at the same time.
Yeah.
Separate stakeholders in there. That's what I'm trying to get out, and then some decisions being made. That got to increase our monitoring. If there's an additional oversight requirement because of all of these changes, then that changes what happens at USP. Definitely. And with these changes, change your world, and so almost that oversight. Who's going to take point on this track? What is it? That's what I'm trying to inventory.
I'm not sure how to put all the pieces together.
Well, but at the time we have at USBE that's just have what we want to do. Have some goals and objectives in this. We have goals and objectives in this, and then I don't know. I've got to work with it. I think that's something that can happen, but back to having conversations that we've had with our LEs and I'm doing bigger than what I don't go back. I don't know what motion.
I don't either.
Well, so this is driven by legislature, it's driven by HB 373.
Right.
So this is the work. We've been doing the work.
Okay, all right.
So we brought the report back to August. We reported in August, and then we're progressing together. There are just decisions that are above our level at the work group level. These are policy decisions. They're not in the recommendation. You're getting the recommendations from the work group.
Okay, thank you.
You know, that's really where we're at. Is we can't. Well, staff can't speak for the board, nor the LEAs on which direction we need to go. We know the contract's ending. We know that the LEA doesn't want to, doesn't want to do it. And then we have the key deliverable by way of 373 that we have to come up with a solution on who takes the lead and
Okay, that's helpful. Can I go back to the date for a minute? Is it going to throw our LEAs into having a certain change in December?
Right now, December is the date of the RFP and the contract for the administrative.
Right, isn't it?
But as Matt was referring to, we also have a timeline in terms of a recommendation for doing 180 minutes and then moving to a payment methodology. And that actually is the timeline for that actually does start at really a July 1, 2021 date, but frankly, I think we could adjust that to say beginning of the school year. I mean, July 1 is our fiscal year, so it makes sense to us to start anything on a fiscal year. But you know, we could adjust that date. We could work with Jordan and Jordan working with CMS Inc. to only extend their contracts out to, July 1, 2021 or June 30th, 2021, so we could line them all up. I think we just need some guidance in terms of if that's what the committee and ultimately the board prefers, we can work with that as well.
I think that alignment is important. I like the recommendation of taking the time to make sure this is done right. Not being hurry. Also gives you time to get everybody to make sure you've got the pathways.
And that's the feedback we received from the LEAs as well when we're talking to them about potential changes. Is most of them, while they're eager to move forward, do want to make sure that there's adequate time so they can make adjustments. So they've communicated that to us and we've tried to incorporate that in the rollout.
Is it okay if we bring Mark? Mark, do you want to come up? Or Todd? I don't know who wants to come up and talk to this. Talking to you two, no, back here.
Fine.
See how it affects the districts.
Time is going to
No.
back and let us know. Decided as to who's going to take whom.
I think we have to tell them. I think that's the problem.
But I don't
That's the
want-
problem. Okay, Todd. How is this going to affect districts, this change and blah, blah, blah? How about the 180 minutes? Just that. Don't charge by the 180 minutes.
So the 180 minutes will just mean eligible.
Right, then how's that going to affect your finances and turning that in and your sped department and
Support systems.
It will just mean more volume. Cost is, I don't know, up to all those individual stocks. We're not recognizing them yet. I kind of want to check in. Population being tested.
I'm asking a different question, sorry.
Okay.
Not that there's going to be more students and more volume running through, or less volume, I don't know. But right now in your system, it's set up that when it's 180 days, then right. What's gonna happen if it's different than that? What's it gonna cause to a district to start now putting that in?
So, depends on which system they're using. So, tracking document for these systems. I don't know that I have a specific answer.
But this much time, a little more than a year to get ready for a change rather than minutes, what'd you call it? It would be, no, that's what you said is happening.
This could actually be almost 2 years, or at least a year and a half, actually, if you try to get to 2020.
Okay, so have you talked to your fellow VAs about this at all?
Not about this proposal specifically. Had a different conversation with my customer.
Well, we haven't even gotten to that part yet.
Yeah, so I was wondering which part of the PM are you talking about?
We're just talking about the minutes versus.
Because right now the districts are individually managing the part you're talking about now. We've had more
Okay,
conversation there than.
Okay, so minutes versus days doesn't seem to be it doesn't seem to be weighing heavy on you.
I don't know that it's on our radar screen enough to know that we should be concerned or not concerned.
All right.
I don't think that's the bigger of the two of this, but I did outline some of the stuff that would need to be done by the LEAs for us to get ready for the rule of the 180 minutes, and the work that would need to be done on our side to get ready for that.
Okay, Leah, may I ask you a question? Why wouldn't we have Medicaid take this on, and how is it done in other states, rather than run through here?
Oh, that's a great question. Scott and I have actually been investigating what they do in other states. There are lots of different systems. There are state boards of education that take it on. In the majority of the states that we investigated was Medicaid. But their agencies are set up differently. Like just the whole state systems are set up differently. But is it Michigan, Scott, that we liked the best, that we thought their system was the best? What was the beginning of the question?
Tell me Michigan's, don't stop.
So,
Go ahead.
so in Michigan's, right, the Department of Health is what we call the MCA. We're the ones that do that. So basically what Lee is touching on is we're set up, the USB is set up as a constitutional office. We're not beholden to the executive branch. other states, the Board of Education or the Office of Education. So to her point, systems-wise, we don't have, at this level, we don't have the systems or the personnel to effectively take this over. You would have to do that. You know, that would have to be part of the process. Whereas Department of Health is further along with systems, Medicaid billing, all of these types of things that, so when we look at the other states, we're like, well, you know, my recommendation would be the Department of Health take the lead.
Yes.
Because then also too, the effect on USBE is not comparable to, like, to your questions to Todd about what it would be on the LEAs. Because right now LEAs, and correct me if I'm wrong, can basically opt in to do it, right? And they do their to your question to Todd, I think that's what he's saying. They would be doing cost benefit analysis on whether to do it. So in other states though, boards of education have taken it as far as putting it into rule that LEAs will do this, right? Because of this thing. So that's why we've reached a point here where it's above our work group level. These are policy decisions. These are decisions that we need to go back to the legislature on to say, you know, uniformly, you know, with this work group to say, here's what we've done. We've discussed this. We think it should reside more with this department. Here's our plan going forward. Which this is a pretty good plan that's in your backups, right? That Matt can go through with you some more. Do that if you feel like that's. There's time to still develop more, but that's really where this at. We have an LEA that doesn't want to continue their contract, right? Or doesn't, and so to decide which agency
So
or
Department of
help
Health
decide.
would be June. That seems, does that make sense?
Well,
But I like that idea.
We would be responsible for administering the Medicaid administrative contract, the contractor. Any LEA that wanted to participate to draw down Medicaid match would have to agree to utilize that contractor to do the random enrollment time study, because that would be part of the process. Basically for that piece, yes, basically for that process.
Why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we do that? Do you have?
Let me help.
Okay, yeah. I don't know why.
As we're, this line item, we'll talk about last month and then again here. All the data again. See anywhere in this probably with 181 that model rollout that we thought in our packet. I don't see DOH work. I see district LEA work. Or UDOH work. LEA and district work, but I don't see our role. Absolutely nothing for us to do, and so this one. Why are we, or why are we putting out a?
Because the legislature mandated us to do this.
Oh, to be in compliance. Be in compliance, I'm saying, so did the work group meet? Say, okay, USBE, this is to happen times because of House Bill 373. That's what I'm trying to find.
So it's telling us that we need to get this going and do it. It doesn't, we don't necessarily have to do it. That's what you're saying?
That we need to make recommendations on where we're going.
I got it.
Really,
Our role in all of it.
Right.
Go back to House Bill and
I think where it affects districts, that's maybe where we're not necessarily. Matt, you had something?
I think one of the areas that USB needs to impact is when it comes to the procurement, and since this is one where the districts can opt into whether they are claiming this or not, they would either have to go out and contract separately or do a separate agreement in order to use the vendor. So in order to make it something that they wouldn't have to do some separate action, either state purchasing could do a statewide cooperative contract, or with the agreement that we have, we could do a contract that the school districts could use. So if we did a joint RFP, then they would be able to contract without having to do separate action.
So if we have
Okay.
state purchasing, put all that together, we're in compliance with the House bill,
Correct.
why put more on our code?
If state purchasing did the contract and made it fully cooperative that anyone in the state could use it, then CMS or whoever the awarded vendor is, then any agency who would do any kind of Medicaid billing would be able to use that contract for that time billing. Where if we were part of that, it would only be limited to districts.
Oh, would it be better to have it limited to districts or charters?
That is unfortunately above my regulation, but that's where kind of we can have an impact, and I think where we would have that interaction with the RFP and that contract is that agreement we've already come to with state purchasing. So I think those would probably be the two best options to reduce the burden on LEAs.
I'm not sure that it's not better to have the coordination. And maybe, and then Medicaid could run the RFP. By then with the coordination.
Sorry, I'm Jesse Nadine. As our, the functioning within schools, but there's such an opportunity to make improvements to how Medicaid dollars in schools. So I think just from a big picture, and the reason why we advocate for this is because there's a lot of opportunity, even though it's a lot to puzzle through. And I think more conversation will allow opportunities to
recommendation. So actually, we think working together on the language of the RFP, because the vendor has to comply with basically federal Medicaid requirements in order to make sure that we don't run into a problem with disallowance, we actually recommend that we probably actually manage the contractor. And that way it takes that off of USP's plate, it takes that off of the work hand in hand with, I think exactly one who's been designated, right, to do this, is that correct?
Is purchasing it.
Yeah, okay, all right, so, well, I'm not quite familiar with all of the structure, but, that we would work closely with Zach to make sure that we could.
So that's one piece.
That's one piece, but at least that way we could take that piece of it and USPE or an LEA would not have to worry about monitoring and administering that contract. Wants to do that.
Up here, if we went with that, are there tentacles that affect the other two pieces, the admin piece and the minute pieces? Are they all?
I think the tool that we would get from a new contractor supports the program as a whole, right?
I think where it sits doesn't necessarily impact its the function should be the same wherever it sits, and we have to put it in compliance with uniform guidance for.
I don't care where it sits, it's sitting there.
So however, wherever it is, the function of it has to be the same. So I think it wouldn't. I think it's going to impact it, but the current process is out of compliance with federal
Right, and that's what you told us to do.
Once we bring it into it, then the impact's gonna be the same. It'll have some impact, but it will be the same no matter what.
I appreciate that, Matthew, that was, in my muddy head, okay? How do you,
So, the way this is rolling out, there would be SBE's responsibility, oversight, monitoring, layer control. And the answer is no. So when the LEAs are in a non-compliance situation, deal with the non-compliance.
we would get support in helping write the RFP? Right, we wouldn't do the RFP, we'd just help them.
And
I
then
actually like
the
that.
changes in the sandbox that we talked about is just,
What about the admin piece then?
and USBE is a bridge between the LEA training or anything like that, every LEA. Not figured out, and USBE will not have.
Well, that just feels delicious to me, but I mean, I wanna make sure it's right.
So we actually have staff person who works with all of the LEAs, is contacted by different LEAs, different charter schools who express an interest, provide them information. They have to do a return on investment analysis to determine whether or not it's worth it to them or not. Matt and his staff, they do an annual training for all of the LEAs and charter schools. We do that now, so I think
Doesn't this also include the drawdown for administrative funds?
Yeah,
That
so the
all will incorporate.
study and the cost allocation process done by the vendor its primary purpose is around the Medicaid administrative claiming, because that's the mechanism is through time study and cost allocation. And then we also utilize that to do our cost settlement currently for the direct care services. But in the new payment model, it is the core function of the payment mechanism for the new payment model. So it would apply to both.
Okay, so Todd, do you have any questions on that? Maybe a million?
Got my brain around some of it. So this contract we're talking about, for
Yeah, it will incorporate all of that.
like 4 different softwares that would all discontinue. Is that what I'm hearing? Or would we still continue as we have?
And I'm seeing this, I don't wanna say we wouldn't care, but our fingerprints aren't on it. I
But
just-
no, but-
that's what I'm
but
saying.
you're
I'm not-
asking-
I'm not the mandate part, it's
No.
just, is the expectation if this is gonna get tied to MAC,
You have a vendor.
part of MAC is to be part of this. That's
Probably.
the question I have, because we've all negotiated our fees in different packages. This can be more expensive and if you pay 5% down, then it's
See how the RFP,
the LEA that manages the MAC charges a
Look at
fee.
the RFP.
see how the RFP goes down. Not saving.
Not looking for savings, I'm looking for not.
No cost.
We'll have to up their game. Have access to it.
Of the contract. Okay, so are we saying we're not taking a vote, we're just going to give direction to our staff to work with
Not
me?
direction, just
So, anything specific to that?
I don't
Still-
think so, Leah said it's not enrolled.
So, but I'm not clear on. Says that you can get away from it.
Your manual, so they'd be updating, yeah.
we would,
Make sure you-
So if it's under their head,
It's in,
Yeah.
it's in her.
that requirement.
We don't have that requirement.
We don't have any conflicting rule, or there's nothing in our state plan that conflicts.
There is what exactly the legislature. Otherwise, we could face the potential of a bill dictating who actually. This way, this has been worth the squeeze because we're moving together and we're all in uniform and, uniformity as far as what the way ahead is. I'm not sure that takes action. Finance committee, but the board knows about this too because it's bound to come up. And your LEAs, your constituents talk to you about this process. So, if anything, this makes you situationally aware of what's driving.
Make everyone situationally aware. If we move. Contract people on this.
As they create the. Okay, there's our motion, did you hear?
Just for this component of it isn't lost, but we would still have to engage Jordan and CMS Inc. to extend CMS's contract for 1 year, is what I would recommend, to put it in.
But I think I think that would be.
Well, we don't have a contract with CMS Inc., but we have a contract with Jordan. But we would have to talk with them, and they would have to decide whether they're willing and able to do that, and CMS Inc., whether they're willing to do that.
I think the reality is if neither one are willing to do that, then the schools have nothing until we get an RFP out and get new vendors. So that is.
Well, then we better get notes.
Yes. It's a time thing, yeah.
Yes.
Well, Jordan's already contracted till the 31st of 2021.
Yeah.
They just need to be willing to extend CMS's contract.
Inc. if they're willing to.
So we can reach out to Jordan and have that discussion with them, but just so
I think it falls under you. So Cammie, did you get that? You want to read it back to us? You did not get it. Oh, boss, do it again.
Do it, you just gonna reach out.
Okay, Cammie, you'll. Okay, you do it.
I'll make a motion. Report to documents. We have our contract staff working on RFP.
For the LMNOP. Okay.
Yeah, that time study and cost allocation. Sorry.
Yeah, that's my. I can see now. Thank you for your patience on this. I wish I was asking. I'm confused trying to.
Me too. Okay, so we have a motion. Any more discussion? Okay, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
See if Michelle's there.
Aye.
Thank you. I know it took us a long time, but
that's understandable. It is
thanks, Zach. And now I got a sweet treat, so now I'm happy. Did you ever get your cookie open? You want another one?
No.
Okay, that was a short one. Okay. So, do we have an 8.3? Do you have recognitions? Recognitions or progress or improvements?
Yes, so there's two of them I'd like to point out. Recently, staff were asked, basically invited by St. George Academy's business administrator to come down and basically train and assist. Brett's here if you want more input on this, but we provided his trip report basically about what occurred down there. Why we think this is important is it recognizes the fact that staff here are available to any LEA at any time to advise and assist, to train, so that we're just not in the business of just saying, well, it's just all about compliance. We'll go down there and find out, and then we'll close our briefcases and leave.
Right.
We're also here to support. So we think we're balancing this pretty well with the support and compliance aspects of the organization and the direction of the Subject to any questions on that, I'll go to the other
No, I just want to say something, I mean, that's a long trip, and that was a lot of work, and I appreciate that, so.
Yeah, but kudos to St. George
For their work
Academy
as
and
well.
their work and where they're heading. You'll see in the report that they recently, well, that's why the business administrator, I think, requested this, is they had business services provided to them and then transitioned to her those services, and she, she's very adamant that she wanted us to come down, help her look at what right is, get those kinds of procedures and policies in place. And it's a joint effort between us or with us and the state charter school board staff. My
Yeah.
understanding is that at least one staff member.
That's
Yes,
good.
yes, ma'am.
That's good.
So,
Okay,
we really wanted to recognize all of the players, St. George Academy, state charter school board staff, our staff,
Yeah.
being interested in supporting LEAs towards success with their financial operations. The next one up is the Upstart report. Members of the board that have been on for 3 or more years will recall all of the audits that took place on Upstart. So due to a lot of the efforts holistically across the staff, right, including like Sarah Young, program, calling out Deborah's work with the vendor, with them, has resulted in no findings for the first time with this particular program.
How do you ever have no findings? That's pretty miraculous.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And again, it's not just in financial operations, it's a combination of all of it, but it's the synergy between us, the vendor, the program personnel that's resulted in this, and especially Deborah's spending a lot of time in meetings with what right is as far as reconciliation, payments, how all that's worked, as we've run into issues in the past about paying or potentially overpaying and findings along those lines, and for the first time recognize the fact that, and it's not just happening with this program, it's happening in all our programs, which is the efficiencies and oversight, if you will, of them that results in this.
Well, I appreciate you being a good leader and saying that it's everybody else, but it's also your guidance and your leadership.
Thanks.
So.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
And that concludes this agenda.
Okay, so now we're on 8.4, discussion. Was there any requests for data or information this time? Okay.
Or no follow-ups.
No follow-ups.
We're open to additional.
And who
That's
wants
what
to
this
ask
is
for them?
Yeah.
Is
If you
there,
have any,
is there anything you want to
Board
find out?
Member Bolter, I don't know if she wants any.
Just send it in, Michelle, if you have something, send it. Okay, 8.5, the status of USBE carry forward balance and recommended changes or action. I just want to say something about this, that today Scott made a presentation to the public education approps, and it was very clear, and Deborah made this chart, and you could see what the carry forward was, what's being used, what's already, you didn't use encumbered, what's the term you used? That was obligated to be used, and it was very clear and very helpful for them to see what was there, and that it's not just because it's there, we're spending it. That's not the case, and I appreciated that today. So, okay, now we have an action item.
We do, so if you'll invite Director Jacobson back out. Oh, okay, because it was her action too. No, what it is.
Kind of? Okay, it's a carry forward for her?
It is, well, we need your permission to repurpose the original plan that you did.
Well, do you want to just skip this for a minute and see if Leah comes?
You want to do that? And see.
That's fine. Okay, and then
There's no other
have her come back down in a minute, because we'll go on to something else. Sorry, Deborah. Okay, let's go to 8.6. Paula must be here. The distributions of funds from the trust distribution account and administration of school land trust. Is that called TAC? All of that, thank you. This is so
You can
long.
make up, you're the chair, you can make up your own.
Oh, acronyms. I like LMNOP, okay? So, all right, so Paula, if we are on, everyone, we are in 8.6, 277, R 277477. Ooh,
Okay, so did we need Ben for this one too?
He's gonna come if he can, but he's not to go ahead.
Yep. I think we can handle it, I just want to mention it.
And you all know, I'm Paula Plant, Director of the School Children's Dress Section. And Mark Reynolds from Tooele is here because part of this rule is coming from these rule changes is coming from. So if you have questions on that part.
And so, for clarity before you begin, some of these rule changes are coming from TAC, and some of them are coming from UASBO.
All of them went through TAC.
Okay.
But part of them were initiated through UASBO.
And the UASBO pieces, have they been vetted by TAC?
Yes.
So both groups are in agreement of what's on the table today.
Of version 3, draft version 3, draft 4 has some changes in it.
And they haven't been vetted.
Right.
Okay.
So, I want to look at draft 4.
Thank you.
Okay. And to Chair Huntsman's comment, what problem were we trying to correct? I think it's probably easier if we just start there. There's been some confusion over the years about what is a critical academic need. That's what the law says, right? So what is that? And the definition has changed over time, and there has still been some confusion. So I think that's the basis of what the Trust Advisory Committee has been trying to work on for multiple months. So, and I think it's basically a policy decision for them. So I'm going to go through this and explain to you what the difference in opinion is, okay? So, draft 3 is the position of the Trust Advisory Committee. That went to the Rules Review Committee days ago, and it was Ben, and Ben was there, and made some concerns, and I think you all received an email about their concerns. So we tried to regroup and do draft 4 that then would address the concerns.
So in draft 4, sorry, Paula, in draft 4, is it showing the changes so I know which is which, or do I have to pull them both up side by
So
side?
the blue and red changes that you see in draft 4, that shows the difference between draft 3 and draft 4.
Okay, so the red is what was there in 3, and the blue is what has been added by superintendents.
To respond to the superintendent's concerns.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Straight.
So, the changes really start on lines 55 to 58. And this is a definition that the superintendent, and I want to clarify, I got confirmation today, superintendents who met this morning, changes we made, they are simple. I want to make sure we tried to address the concerns. Did we really address them? And the answer is yes, we did.
But has TAC agreed with it?
TAC hasn't seen 4 yet. So you can see the definition of critical academic need there. And then if you go over to lines.
Of these while we're going? Okay, so identified by a council. It doesn't say it's a council.
Just to find a part, there's a charter.
It's the school community council or the charter trust that counts.
Okay, together.
On 47. I'm 47.
Okay, I just all right.
Okay, so this would then define the most critical academic need as being basically anything that's less that has been identified by the council. So it's in core standards, then if the council wants to address anything in the core standards. So then you go over to page number 6. And the underlined language there, 166 to 168, is just, you needed to put that in based on changes that were made in the law last year related to TSSA. That's all that is. No one has, everybody's good with that. So if you go down to 176 through 183, and also 197 through 216, the trust advisory committee basically, their position was that these targets are in your strategic direction is where they would like councils to address their needs first. And they could address some other needs if they defend to the local board why they think they need to. That was the position, that's the position of TAC. So it limits the academic areas that councils could address. What the tenants have said is, we think anything or standards ought to be available for councils to address. That's really the difference between the two. So draft 3 is the position of TAC, it is more limited. And 4 is the position of the superintendents, that is broad.
So if I had to just be, if I just had to be really specific, in one, you could do something with art, and in the other one, you could.
But in art, you would have had to defend to the local board why you thought art was more important than language arts or science.
The other difference is there was a cap that's you could spend on art. There's not a cap for.
So that's basically the difference. Now, the next part is what actually came from, so if you turn page, I don't know where you are, but
We have lines.
okay, lines, if you go to 235.
What happened to 197 to 200?
97. Okay, that's
That relates back to the stuff up above. Okay, thank you. All right, sorry, Paula.
you're great. And so then if you go to lines 235 through did I say that wrong?
248.
Sorry. Well, this is the part that initially from the business administrators, and it addresses a concern that they have when a school overspends unintentionally. So maybe they order computers. Computers come and they're $200 more than they've got in their budget. Past, the district or the LEA then had to come up with the difference. They had to come up with that $200 difference. Business administrators have basically said schools are going to have, and we just let them have sort of an advance or a borrowing or whatever you want to call it, and then we will settle up. And if they had to borrow $200 to cover those computers that they weren't expecting were going to cost that much, then they would have $200 less in their allocation. School and Smith.
This is borrowing from another, what districts have from other schools.
So
Florida couldn't do this.
if they
Okay.
So,
want to elaborate?
so this is really interesting because school and learn some math. Some simple math,
I learned 2 plus 2.
and I learned a little bit about a budget.
Don't overspend.
And so with the community councils and everyone that I've been involved with, they plans together and everything. They have a good idea what they are going to Both of them to- So, okay, we're gonna do it. They do it, and then they'll most likely have a little bit of money left over. Modify your plans, or they get creative and say, buy these kind of supplies. Have this vision, mission, purpose happening. So this part here, both groups are wanting this in. Kind of really odd. I'm supportive of it. It kind of goes against all about. And so is there a limit on how much? What they're going to end up doing is spirit of what we're trying to do per individual.
We've used the language small advance, and we talked about whether that should be defined. TAC preferred flexibility there, and so we left it at small advance. But I told them they would have to expect this question.
What's a small advance? $1, $100, $1,000?
Depends on the LEA and what they're talking about.
There was some discussion of capping it at a percentage or at a number, depending on the size of the budget. But I don't think we came to any firm coalition around a specific.
What are your thoughts on that, Lark? I'm curious.
Personally, I don't think it'll be an issue. I do believe that LEAs will be able to administer it. An individual school, those that I've seen, we have overspent, if you want to put it that way, gone negative. Business administrator, in my opinion, would work that out with the principal, the community council. The following year, they would have a frank conversation. I don't see it being ridiculous. I mean, how else to put it? I'm not saying there couldn't be an extreme example out there, but I don't see where this would be an issue.
The interesting thing about this is process to plan a program. And that just give a green light, and then it's not followed correctly. The local board's fingerprints on this of money from school to school. This very gifted situation with the business industry happens to know somebody with a shortfall can balance books. Kind of goes against the accountability piece. This process of doing. I'm bringing this up, but my point is this needs to move forward. But I want to. Likely, there's going to be, if we send this to the whole board, there most likely will be draft 5.
It'll probably be 10 by the time we're done.
Maybe use an analogy of why the business administrators potentially asked for this as far as the accountability. I can only speak for TAC because I sat in there. I was the one who was vocal with the others present. I mean, vocal, trying to get them to see why business administrators are saying this. It's the only program, it's unique this way, that speaking for a district that has 26 schools. So my simple example, let's say 25 of those good, and in their plans they did not spend $10. So they got within $10 of their budget. So they had $250, but we call that as deferred revenue or unearned year-end for those $250 for 25 schools. One of them happened to overspend by 10. But I would have reported to you when I submit UPEFs to the state office. Our financials for the year would be 240 because you'd have 250 from positive schools, 10 from one of them. Or that. When it comes to entering it, that's what I would have submitted to Brett. I'm looking back at him. But because we look at things at a district level, not individual schools, which is kind of why this is unique. But that when I go to put those same figures online, it would not let me on that school who went negative to put in a negative 10. I would have on that report at 250 deferred revenue and 240 through UPEFs, and they don't like not having to spend.
I understand on the local board, this is why they ought to be engaged in it. Say, hey, here's, hey, okay, somebody says, okay, take from other funds, unrestricted funds, and cough up to $10 that went over, but I'm saying, I know that it's not that simple, but I know we're trying to get to this place of making it easy to zero, make it easy to out, but I think TSSA is going to be in the same boat when we've got these designated to specific goals only. Put it to the school, that's a little campus school, and gonna borrow from that school to balance your TSSA expenditures because you had a strategy
saying
or a
yes.
plan. So this is where I'm just going, boy, we ought to get this right. Apparently we can't get it right. We need to, we could say if it's within 3% or 5%, I'm not seeing it. All to balance. I'm not putting you on the.
Paula, was this unanimous in the TAC that this?
It's not an issue. There was a lot of discussion, and that you weren't robbing another school, what you were doing was then you got less the following year. So it's overspent by $10 in his example, and the following year $10 less.
Right, I know that, but I use this system. There is no way in this system of that go to zero, but you can't go below zero. So do we have to change the whole system to be able to run into a negative system?
A point about the programming. Right now, the programming will not allow you to go negative.
Right.
Us reprogramming the website, which is part of the reason we thought it was important to bring it to you now, because if we want to make a change in the programming, we ought to be doing it now before it gets programmed.
So if I go back, was this unanimous to allow district schools, whatever, to go into the negative?
And I think it's also important to point out that the board has to approve. It doesn't just, Mark just doesn't get to say, okay, I'm going to do this. It has to go to the board, the local board, and the local board is going to have to say.
If you look on 238.
What is that?
They have to approve the advance, but what if they've already overspent and the board doesn't approve?
What if every school's over?
Well, they have to have,
Have to have
237, the LA has to have the unspent funds. And then 238, the board has to approve the advance. So if the LA doesn't have the unspent funds, they can't do this.
Then what? Then what?
And the LA probably has to cover it with other funds.
We have to do those.
One will allow them to overspend.
Yeah, I just say one other quick point is that they used to. The reason business administrators are frustrated is this was a recent change 4 years ago. We were allowed to have, in my simple example, 240 and 240 and not have different numbers. Programming changes that happened just a few years ago. That's why they're asking for that back.
How do you program our system to allow, if this school, or do you just go through district?
That was a problem. Programming the system is.
No, actually, we received direction from finance. It said to us, you're allowing schools to overspend, you can't do that, so we built it into the system. So when business administrators go in to enter, if they go negative, it won't let them save. Well, it lets them save, but it won't let them submit. Making sense?
Yeah.
They can't finish the submission if they have overspent by $1.
Which figures the process of covering the, so that they can't, so it's just a.
For money, right.
Well, I think what Paula's saying is I don't think we're saying that we're going to allow them to do it anymore, we're just going to keep
Now, Clark has to answer this question, but I would expect that business administrators would know in time to go to the board and say, we've got a problem, and we borrow from next year's fund and pay the school back, do that adjustment, pay the school. They would have to do that, right?
And what if they can't and they have to take them somewhere else? And what if they can't? Then they'll go to a restricted fund and make sure they find it and use it.
Business administrator uses his debit card.
Oh.
Takes it.
Sean.
Real quick, I'm gonna go back a little ways. You stated that all of TAC has not reviewed draft 4, correct?
Right, but the changes that are not in red or blue, they have approved. That would be draft 3. So this section that we're talking about right now has been approved by TAC, and you have a letter from them saying that they
I've received a letter signed by a couple of individuals, but I think if we were to start moving forward, we take this back to TAC before we can have all of TAC review that draft 4. If I receive a letter from I can believe it because I need to check it first to confirm that. That's what I want to see. It's confirmed, draft 4 confirmed by TAC and says it from this prior to moving forward.
That need to go.
Start.
I think that's the 14th, you made the 16th and the 17th.
Yeah, you wouldn't, as soon as you'd get a rule passed, if we did that, would be probably May meeting, it would be June or July before this would be final. I don't know how easy that would be as far as implementation. The main concern is getting some finality here. I would present you 2 options, because TAC has essentially already taken a position as to what they want, but the superintendent's just disagreeing. We have had the discussion as to the difference quite extensively. I think that's fair to say, even though they haven't looked at the language of draft 4, they've discussed the principles for the last several meetings. As we've had this come before the committee earlier.
But not some of these new ones.
Can we still move it to the full board? And then that's one of the prerequisites of coming back to the full board, right? Would that be supportable? Well, I'm just saying that.
And then we maybe have draft 6 by
Rule needs to.
draft 5.
I'm just asking him if that's okay.
I think
I see what you're saying.
To make sure that all the ducks are in a row from line of since I didn't have any input on this. Then that would help with that time. That would help with that timeline.
No, it's okay.
It's the Monday before you. I think that's the. No, it's not.
Your board meeting in March is later. Normally it's.
March 16th?
They meet on the 16th.
At what time?
At noon. We'll meet on the 19th.
Paula?
Yes.
Should we finish the rest of it?
There's one other principle change.
Lines 3, 12, and 15. Came from some local boards who had indicated to us that and they submitted final reports. This is what we did on the plan, right? Boards are sometimes saying, never get a final report on what actually happened. Some do, some don't. So this just says, once the plans are all finalized, they've done the final report, the expenditures are all in, like a summary report, and it says how that needs to happen, whatever works for the district to do. Report back to the board, a summary, this is what the service.
Right, so when a school puts that report in, LEA can take that report and give that already done report to the governing board.
I guess it would be a summary, so in terms, it would just be one plan, but in a district, it would be a summary, however they want to do it, a summary of what happened.
So
in
one
that
might go, we had 24 schools who did da-da-da-da-da, and one that owes $10 next year. It could be that, like that, right? Since that one school is gonna always be in trouble in your age. Okay. Anything else? So Sean, do you want to make a motion with that caveat?
That we're going to the board.
And that the review of my TAC and you have time to put those things in rule by then.
So you're moving to adopt draft 4, first reading. With the caveat, the TAC reviews it before the board adopts it on second reading. You also include in your motion that we continue the rule. This rule is going to be sunsetting in about 6 months, so rather than bring it back another time.
Okay, all right, I understand that.
So is that continue the rule?
And a continuation. Tammy, did you pick all that up?
Or, yeah, because if I have to try.
You want Tammy to read it back to us?
Yes, let me see.
Board member will move into committee vote, will vote to continue and enforce that not to by TAC before the board approves on second.
That good?
Okay. Yeah, any more discussion? We're discussing, but we don't care. All in favor? Aye, Bob.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I am. I put it on my calendar. I'm here. But then I have to go synchronization. Can you change synchronization? Oh,
You want to two?
Go on that day.
okay, so now we're on something. We are the longest meeting we've ever had, I swear. We need to go back to 8.5, but we don't have.
No, Leah's not back yet. So I recommend we do number 8, because all the staff here to report on number 8.
Number 8 what?
School-based mental health.
8.8.
8.8, sorry.
Oh, okay.
School-based mental health.
Except that it's informational and not action. Okay,
Well, because the only other action is to carry forward recommendation. Oh, yeah.
we have 8.9
Yes.
and proposed board resolution.
8.9. Do you want to do 8.9?
No, let's do
Okay,
8.9
come on
first,
up.
sorry.
From Moss Adams, come on up. What's that?
8.9. 8.9. Okay. Update on policies and procedures, creation, training, and implementation and action on priority
And all by
of effort.
yourself?
I am.
Okay, introduce yourself, please. Yeah, you knock your knees.
Hi, I'm Haley Garcia. I'm a senior manager with Moss Adams. I'm the lead on our team to work with the city or the board to be able to develop and update the policies and procedures. Specifically, right now, we're working on the finance policies and procedures from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and excited to be here today to give you guys a quick update.
In your backups, there's the of oh, let's see. Where will we help you?
Got it up.
My iPad, I have my presentation on here,
I can.
but I can't
Okay.
connect them.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Hey, thank you for
Having me.
doing it for free.
It's
That'll
okay,
work.
we're happy it's getting done.
Oh, or for $1, nothing's ever free. You're free, but. Oh, while he's bringing it up. And so you're the point, you're the lead, one making all the magic happen.
I don't know if it's magic, but yes, I think it is. So yes, I'm running the project. I'm the one that initially met with Scott, met with the entire finance team, scoped the project, determined what was needed, analyzed and put together the plan to be able to help you guys. And I am the lead that comes out and manages the process of meeting with the staff, interviewing, coming up with recommendations. I have a team that works with me that comes out, but
One thing in the presentation, maybe I missed it in that. I want to take advantage of this opportunity. So tell me about your team, what you have, and the strength of your team. Back in
yeah, definitely. So I'll start with myself. So again, I'm Haley. Been with Moss Adams for a very long time, 10 months. But I come with 13 years of experience. At my prior firm, right out of college, I went into public accounting, worked in the audit and consulting area for 13 years, became a partner at that firm 3 years ago. And I developed there the policy and procedure development function and our internal audit function. I took that kind of from the ground up for my old firm, had about a team of 15 by the time I had left, and we had grown into a huge portion of the overall revenue. When I came to Moss Adams, I got a great opportunity about 10 to 12 months ago to come here and do the same thing for Moss Adams, but with just the benefit of more resources for my clients. So that brought me here. Coming in and scoping this project, I assessed, who is the right team on my team to be able to do this. We have Emily Hayes, which is a manager in our group that works hand in hand with me. Her background is really in process evaluation, process mapping, benchmarking, best practice implementation. Very much based a lot of her career on process and information flow. So she makes a good fit when it comes to policy and procedure development within our team. We also have a couple of others that will be helping throughout the process to make sure we can get through it in the timeline that we want to for you guys. But myself and Emily will be the main team that you guys will be working with to ensure that consistency from one policy to the next, and to ensure that we bring some people in to help at kind of the senior/manager level. However, they will always have us inside.
Yes.
Just keep going.
QAQC process.
Yep. Yes. So again,
This
I'm.
isn't an interview to hire. I was just
No.
curious.
Are you making me a job offer? Is that what you're doing? No, of course. Good question. We have a vigorous QA process. I participate in all the interviews, so I know the background information. I know what we're going to recommend. I fully understand kind of the environment and what we envision the end product's going to be. My team, usually Emily, is the person that is in charge, a manager level person, is in charge of drafting the initial policy. After that, I come in, I do my review, my updates, my editing. Once I am good with it, we meet with management. For instance, on the finance ones right now, it's Deborah and her team. We'll sit down and spend another day together. And That's not providing our final draft. That's going paragraph by paragraph and talking about each area. Is this going to be effective? Is it efficient for you guys? Is this going to work? Does this recommendation make sense? Does it flow well? From that next all-day meeting to go over a couple of drafts, we'll go back, make updates internally between myself and Emily and our team. And then once we get to a place where we have a draft that is ready to be presented to Scott and his team, we have another QC level of review that it goes through a partner, which is Mark Stranka, which runs the internal audit function for public entities, not-for-profits, and tribes within Moss Adams. So he performs the review of the quality on the back end, the risk management, all of that stuff.
So Haley, we'll just let you brief and you say next slide note.
Perfect. Thanks. So I kind of did the intro. If you want to go to the next slide. So these are the areas that I'm going to talk about today. Should be a pretty quick meeting, but really what I want to cover is a little bit of an overview and approach. I could not come last time. Mark Stranka came for me to present. I found out the night before that I had a severe case of pneumonia, so I could not travel to Utah. So I'm very excited to be here with you guys today, but kind of just want to do a brief overview of our approach and the whole project, which I'm sure you guys are aware of. And then the second thing is to go through our approved work plan and timeline. That's what we presented to you when you hired us back in November. The project status and next steps, I kind of want to tell you guys a little bit of high level about the fun we've been having so far, the progress we've made, and kind of the current status of where things are, and then talk to you about immediate kind of next steps. What are we doing in February, March, April, and when can you guys start seeing the deliverables after we've gone through that vigorous QC process on our end and with management. Right? Okay. Going. We're going to go through a little refresher of the project overview. So when we came in, when I had pretty much an all-day meeting with Scott and his team after I spent probably about 6 to 8 hours looking at all of your policies and procedures that you all have to really understand what's out there, what's good, what's bad, what's missing, what's not what appears to be not effective, just taking kind of an objective, independent, not having talked with you guys and understood where your pain points were, but from an outsider's perspective that does this and has done this for 13 years, what did I see just from looking at them? From that, I came in, met with Scott and his team, and it seemed that there were policy and procedure needs in 5 broad categories. The main one being accounting. That is an area that really needs to be updated, improved, streamlined, a lot of opportunities for improvement and some really good gains on you guys' part if we can do a really good process of this. Second one is grants management, subrecipient monitoring, anything that has to do with the grants, updating or creating, in a lot of cases, the grants management policies and procedures. Procurement, Zach and his team had done a really great job drafting policies and procedures recently. So we will be going in to do a high-level review, provide feedback, get kind of an outsider's perspective, find out from Zach, how we can really help in this area, where have they experienced problems. So our work will be more limited in that area. HR, again, they've made updates recently. They had the transition with a new director. And so there are specific policies that came up in our initial planning and discussions where we know they're going to want help. We know that they either want a second set of eyes or it hasn't been updated in a long time. But then at a high level, we will do kind of a detailed review of all the policies that are out there to see if there's more needs than maybe is known by management that we can help. And the last one is information technology, same thing as HR. We did meet with the IT director. They have some that are already drafted, some that are in progress, some that they have on a to-do list, and really is figuring out how can we provide assistance to push that through, get it done, draft them if necessary, or just really aid in we'll provide some review and guidance, but we're going to push you and make sure that this becomes important. Next slide. I kind of talked about this a little bit, but just my overall approach and what I built my business model on for doing this and helping clients with this at my prior firm, and what I'm excited to do here at Moss and I'm doing with you guys, is this approach to policy and procedure development. Most organizations have really outdated, not comprehensive, kind of worthless policies and procedures, if I'm being honest, and they're not tools that employees are using. So what I do is I take an approach of, if we're going to do this, this is going to be very useful going forward. It's going to be a guide for personnel, it's going to be updated, it's going to be current, it's going to have efficiencies, it's going to be something that new hires want to see. So we come in, we do information gathering, and that's the couple of days. I mean, we sat down for probably 8 hours talking with finance about the travel process and the problems that they're running into and what the state requires, and you know, where employees are getting confused, where do discrepancies or variances come up. So we really come in and look at what's currently in place, what's working well, what's not. We kind of walk through the travel process to see where some of those hang-ups and problems are occurring. We go back, our team performs an assessment compared to best practices based on what we've learned. We go through and we perform a full assessment to see, okay, what needs to change in the current process. We then come up with recommendations that would improve or streamline or add efficiencies, best practices, fix problems, the overall process that we're looking at, and then we do the policy drafting. We take everything we learned about what is and what needs to be documented and incorporate the recommendations to make that process good, comprehensive, efficient, effective, etc. Then we go and talk to management, we do the back and forth QA, making sure that what we're recommending is reasonable, that we're not recommending something that's going to require 2 more FTEs. You know, we want to make sure that we work through all of those and that management is 100% on board with the recommendations and think that they're reasonable and beneficial. Right? Any questions on the approach, the whole outline, objectives and stuff? You guys are just so excited, you're speechless.
Actually, I really am excited.
I hope you are. I am very excited, but
I would not be excited to do it, but I'm excited to have results.
Well, there's crazy people in the world like me that enjoy it, but I know. I wish everything had a policy and procedure. If I could just get one at home for my husband folding laundry, I think our marriage would be a lot better. Like, if I just documented it and you followed the process, but
Well, he'd still have lost socks, so it doesn't matter.
I would like to see that, because I have threatened my husband. If he dries one more shirt he's not supposed to.
Well, that's a problem.
If it's not written, it doesn't exist. You can't hold people accountable.
Okay, are we going through the timeline now?
Yeah, so the full work plan and timeline, this is what was presented. Nothing has really changed. I just kind of put it on one slide. And this just kind of breaks it down in the original timeline that we intended on telling you guys. Again, this is what I developed back in November. Things change a little bit, but we always want to make sure to remind you what we committed to so that we aren't slipping and that you guys can hold us accountable as well. So for accounting, we have come on site to do the accounts payable, travel and expense reports, and budgeting. We did not get to capital assets in November. I remember saying when we started the travel and expense reimbursement process to Deborah and her team, this one's going to be easy. You know, we'll fly through this. We'll probably be done before lunch. And about 8 hours later, we're still having very active conversations and not debates, but, you know, discussions about how to improve it. So we decided to forego capital assets that visit and focus on travel and expense reimbursement because there's so much opportunity. And if we want to go down to the next slide, kind of talk about where we are. Okay, so like I said, those initial interviews for those top 3 occurred in November of 2019. We did have the holidays there. The plan was to try to get the drafts done by February. And so we are working on finalizing our drafts. We've gone through the following up phase, developing the recommendations, doing our first drafts internally, and we're going through the QA process internally. Those will be sent to management within the next 1 to 2 weeks, and we are scheduled to come back out on site the week of February 24th. So we've committed to management, to Deborah and her team, to get them the policies to review by February 21st. And that is by design, it's not last minute. I like to send the policies the first time we talk about it a day or two before I go on site. I don't want them festering over them and editing the details and formatting and coming up with tons and tons of questions on everything, because this is our first draft. It's for discussion. It's to facilitate the conversations that we're going to have when we're on site for 3 days sitting in a conference room with them. So I want them to read it at a high level, come up with overall talking points, things that jump out, but I also don't want them, taking it through everybody and getting tons of, every sentence analyzed, because it's not to that point yet. We need one more process with you guys, do our updates, and then have at it, do what you want to do. Capital assets, since we did not get to it last time, we decided that in February on the 24th when we come out, we will be meeting with the team to be able to start and to do that. Exciting, next slide. So our next steps, like I mentioned in February, we'll be on site for those. We're actually going to start the next one, which is cash management, which was in phase 2. So in February, our on-site visit will be accomplishing a lot. We've got 5 areas, 3 of which will be the final on-site interviews and updating the policies. And the other 2 will be having those first discussions and interviews. In March, we're going to be finalizing AP travel and budget for presentation to the board and approval, hopefully, as long as management's okay with it, in April. That will be the first high priority ones that will be delivered to you guys. Then capital assets and cash management, after we did the interviews in February, we'll be developing our first drafts in March. Following the same flow, in April, we will be back on site to go over those first drafts with management and start the discussions on the next 2 to 3. And this will be an ongoing process until we get through all of them. Okay, any questions on the timeline, the next steps, what's been achieved to date? Oh.
So,
He knows to
so I asked to put this as an action item. A lot of this is driven obviously by responses that we're taking for corrective actions without us, for instance, reviewing. So I asked this to be put as an action item because any concern about the timeline, priority of effort of Moss Adams, we need to know that. Because every 90 days we're asked by our own internal audit to update on progress or, towards those corrective actions. A lot of the things that Moss Adams is doing with us are on that line. So we just report back and we say where it's at. If the report doesn't feel like we're moving fast enough or we need to add things, which could have second and third level effects on the scope of the contract, this is why we put it as an action. And otherwise, I'm confident that we'll get to what right is by way of this process. I just want to make sure though that, based on Haley's presentation, that the finance committee and ultimately the board, when you send this forward to them, part of your update next month is tracking the timelines and deliverables and acceptable to you, and we, hopefully standard by audits that took place.
Sure.
So it kind of puts us in an awkward position because we want this yesterday. The board member being a part of some things that go clear back 4 or 5 years ago, and then trying to move better forward and dealing with this. When this is done, I'm hoping this is one of those wall of fame kind of things that you hang in your office. Oh, look what I did for Utah State Board of Education, and then for us, for our organization, it's just the beginning of what we really want to have in policy. Gold standard not gonna be over with as soon as done. So a couple of years from now, when we talk about milestones that's happened at USBE, this is another one of those significant ones.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to this one. Museums, just not your world, but probably deflection from trying to move on this. So it's important that we get this right and do it very best work. So I don't see any, Chair, I don't see any problem in the timeline because it takes place. You just don't do a timeout, and we've got all of these things going on, especially with the legislature. In fact, I'm really impressed if it happens in February. It happens in February, February and March, but I think we have goals and it's about perfection yet, but it's about progress. So I really appreciate this update.
End of the month.
Absolutely access to this. I'll make sure when I go to audit, I have this also. As far as the timeline goes,
Our auditors are going to be thrilled when this is done.
I think they already know. I think they'll be happy when it's done, but then you have to live within your policy and procedures also. But it's a very significant undertaking for large organizations. We're in the dinosaur age, trying to catch up, but we want something living. My question to you, may I ask?
Yeah.
Are these, to you, you're one of the experts, and I've seen this process happen with investor-owned utilities, but nothing like this organization. So are our expectations, is this doable? Are we rushing? Timeline, are we quality with this rush? Are we on a safe track for something as organization?
Those are very good questions. It makes me excited how excited and focused on this you guys are, because it's very important and not all boards or committees understand that. In speaking with Scott and his team when I first came out here back, after summer and developing this initial timeline in November, I knew how important it was to USBE. I understood how important and how big of an undertaking this is. So when I developed that timeline, it took me days to put that together and to put thoughtful consideration into that to really get to a point where I tracked it out in my mind to make sure that this makes sense. I would not have committed to that on the front end at the very beginning before we started, getting out here and doing interviews and, incurring hours on your project and stuff if I didn't think it was reasonable and if I didn't incorporate enough time to give you guys as much effort and as much dedication that I thought it actually took. So while it is an aggressive timeline to get this all done in a year, basically, I do believe that the timeline is sufficient and you guys aren't being unreasonable. You're not saying we want 10 policies by March. You guys are understanding that it does take time, and I have built that time and the ability to make sure we get this right into that timeline. So that is why I did screenshot the original timeline I gave you guys in November, because I will present that to you guys every time you can. And if there is a delay, if I'm getting behind, if something comes up, I'll be the first to raise my hand and be like, hey, now we're under pressure because this happened, we're not going to be able to do that. But right now, I do think as long as there's no huge surprises, I think the timeline is good.
Okay, I have two questions. One is actually on one of the slides. It's on the project status. It kind of threw me when it said 2/21. It might be better if it said 2/21/2020.
Oh, yes.
My first thought was 2/21, this is never going to be done.
Oh, no, I totally agree.
Okay,
I
because
totally
I
agree.
would-
Next time I will be sure to add
I just-
something new.
So, and then I have a question. You're doing all of these. Is there anywhere where there is a policy and procedure, how to make policies and procedures so that when you're not here anymore, we know how to do that?
That's a very good question. As we go through this process, we did build into the budget in the amended contract time to do extras, to get you guys where you can continue to do this going on, to you where you can actually implement the policies and procedures and carry them out going forward internally. So with that, we are accumulating ideas as we go of where we need to help when we get all the policies in place. So one, which Scott and I had talked about kind of on the front end, was there's a lot of administrative type policies and procedures out there that haven't been considered. That is something that there are some that will need to be added to, and that's something that, updating policies and procedures and what the entity wants to do to be able to make sure they do that, how often they want to be accountable for it, what are they going to report back to you guys. That's great input, and that is something that we will consider at that stage, as well as the training factor. Okay, like you said, we're going to write the policies the way it should be done at that point. And it's going to be reasonable, and management's going to agree, but the hard part is carrying it out. And how can we kind of aid you guys in that process to make sure that you're set up for success? And this isn't something that's just going to be thrown in a drawer, and then your external auditors are going to come in and say, wait, you said you're going to do all these great things. So those types of things are things we're keeping track of as we go, so that when we leave here, you guys are set up for success.
And then I have one last question. Has our audit team been involved in this as well? Or just our operations?
Right now, it's operations. We are getting copies, and we do discuss with management in detail the audit findings that have come up, any management letters from the past, any grant compliance projects, any internal audit findings you guys have had. So in every area that we look at, we do get all that information from your auditors. We're not going out and talking to them at this point because right now they are management's policies and procedures, and we're trying to get them up to the point where they can take them on. However, all those things are being considered. And I do come from a background of, 30 to 40% of my career in 13 years was external audits. And so that is my thing is, if there is a finding, whether it's internal or external audit, I'm going to help set you guys up for success on the internal controls.
Audit brain, oh my gosh.
I have such an audit brain. In my personal life, since I have such an audit brain, so.
And so, when I've seen this done before, there's kind of a separation to rolling this out because they want to see they're not in the business to fix what's wrong. They're in the business to make sure you have things in place, and then when it plays, you're using it. So, like, for example, the company's policy and procedure manuals, manual. People that go to it most often will have paper. Or keep time with the notes.
So you're using it.
I know my managers understand that. Ones that try to find it online, and our auditors, or like me after it's created, they want to see, okay, is this
It'll play a role on the back end of trying to make sure, did we address all the findings? And then that's great, but I'm setting you guys up to take the next step, which is the important step is, okay, now you've documented exactly what you want to do to clear these findings or to have the controls, you got to carry it out. And that's what they test.
Okay.
So while you're going into this, there was a scope of work, an RFP, you were hired in that. One of my concerns, I thought, well, I might as well ask him offline, is that are we still within our, you're the vendor, are we still within our scope? We're getting to that point where we're asked, is it a bigger animal than you thought? Trying to work through, or any changes in scope or potential?
Your scope was defined as assist USBE policies. It wasn't well defined in the RFP process. Therefore, I quoted you guys a dollar rate per hour, because again, that could be, it could be one or two policies you need, and I could have came in here and assessed, and you guys need, every single policy from beginning to end. So it could have been years of work or 1 week of assistance. You guys need help. That was on the RFP process. When I came in November and I spent a day on site with all of finance to really determine what are you guys' needs, I did my homework on my own time beforehand, coming up with reading your policies, assessing everything that's out there. At that point is when I developed the actual proposed scope of work, now that we did that, and that's what the contract was based on. With that, we are still within the scope, but I put a lot of work up front in November to make sure that the work plan that we carried out or that we proposed to you guys was very well thought out and left room for contingencies. If there's the admin policies that Scott or you guys want us to get into, there's board policies, let's say, there's training for personnel, whatever that is, you know, we have that built in there, and we're just working hand in hand to communicate with you guys on the board of, you know, we are gonna do all these policies we told you, but we built into the scope to be able to do that. So we're on board for that still.
A follow-up to that is, find ourselves in that space or place where not gonna meet our timeline, it's gonna take more research. Because an organization like this, you're going through discovery. That is not like this perfect package unless somebody comprehensive study and both now. So in your contract, going quickly if that changes, that's not good to say, well, it's gonna push out another 6 months.
No, it will not. Yes, I will be here, and Scott keeps me very informed of when the committee is meeting, when board presentations are needed. I update the timelines and our presentation of that to make sure we are still on track, hence why I present to you what we said we'd do way back when. Here's what we are doing right now, so that you guys can reconcile those two if there is any reconciliation. But as far as scope and what we're achieving and what we plan to achieve each month and that type of thing, we are in constant communication with management. And so with Scott and mostly with his direct team, Deborah and her team, really coming out, and you know, there are on the fly decisions. We planned to get to capital assets last time. That was 25% of what we wanted to do, but I was 100% sure that spending an extra day on travel and expense reimbursement would pay off in the long run. So we're flexible with that as well. At any time, if a huge scope creep comes up and, you know, let's say there's something that's board policies come up and I got asked and I need to do 10 board policies for you guys, completely something we didn't expect, the first thing I would do is go to the and that would trickle down to you guys.
This is kind of a side thing. This is, for this type of project, it seems like it is very short. The questions I have is, are there cultural mechanisms built into these policies? Because that's one of the biggest issues that come up and procedures is getting people Chair Husband mentioned, to get people to really buy in and understand and sure that they're applying these policies and procedures each and every day. So do you have elements built into?
We do, and that's why our discussions, for instance, on travel and expense reimbursement, I could have came in and said, you know, similar to what your external auditors do, which is perfect for the scope of what they need to do for an external audit. You know, they might spend an hour understanding travel and expense reimbursement, how it goes, how it affects the financial statements, and you'd have a high-level understanding of the process. That is not what we do for purposes of this. We dive deep. So we spent 8 hours talking to management on that issue. Where are personnel not complying? Where are you getting complaints? Let's walk through some examples of where people have gotten upset about things. People aren't buying off on what the policies require, where people have a problem with the state grant policy. You know, what are those issues that come up? So we're really learning the ins, the outs, the culture behind it, you know, what different employees at every level are saying about it, and then really that's where a lot of the consulting comes in, is coming up with ideas with management about, what about this? And what can we do to encourage compliance, to make it easier? What if it was easier for them to do this? What if we made complying with the state statutes a lot less complicated or a lot less time consuming? So we are building all of those things in to help hopefully when it comes to, the training and the implementation phase, that they're written in a way that encourages compliance and addresses some of those cultural concerns, because we're aware of the total situation when we leave those interviews. I mean, we're really in the trenches of the gossip, the complaints, the time pressures, the turnover, all those things that might affect kind of the culture around the policy, that we're able to write the policies that way. We're also keeping very good notes of things that come up, because that training component that comes after the fact, those can be very beneficial. And you don't want to go in and say, okay, here's all the things you guys have to do for travel. We're not going to pay you back. We go in there, we build very useful tools, little checklists they can put by their desk to make things quicker. We talk to them about, how this is going to help you, how it's going to make it more easier on your life, or take stress out, or reduce redundancy. And yeah, you're going to have to do these things to make sure you're complying. But the great thing is now it's easier and it's in compliance with state policy, and it's going to help the organization overall. So we are keeping that type of thing so that it's eventually when we get to the training, it's not a boring, you need to do this training. It's something that hopefully speaks to those problems we've had in the past and what management has done, truly considering how can we improve things for our employees to encourage compliance. It's very exciting. I think it'll be.
I don't believe we have action from this today because I think we're on target, so thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully you can say the same next time.
Okay, thank you
Thanks for
so
having
much.
me, guys. I appreciate it. Glad I didn't get pneumonia this time.
I think somehow we missed 8.7. I don't, Paula should have yelled at us. Paula, you should have yelled at us.
Oh.
No. I know you don't.
Oh, no, you did.
I thought you were trying to get back to it for agenda.
No. And it's a resolution. Tell me what you want to do with this resolution. Why are we creating this resolution? Why did that feel the need?
Okay, so, the state board has had a resolution trust lands, funds, program, that your resolutions, years in May sunset. So the resolution that we had in place sunsetted in December, so we need everyone that support for us to have a resolution from you so that we have direction on. I think it's important for us to forward this to agencies that are involved with the trust, the advocacy of companies, about funds to be locally administered. Us to anything that
Are there two updates? Is there any change on the mineral lease or the land, or on was it 2.5 billion that's in the amount? Are those changed and updated?
right, they're updated to where they are now.
Right. Okay. So in a year, they might not be appropriate.
If you adopt them every 2 years, they're up to date, pretty much up to date.
Does anyone have any questions on this resolution? Does it need a reading? A reading? Okay. All right. Any discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Shell. Okay, so now, don't be surprised, we're going to 8.8. School-based mental health qualified grant program update. Hi.
Hello.
And you can put that on record.
So my name's David Christensen. I'm the school safety data analyst. Actually part of the fiscal data group formally adopted by the Safe and Healthy Schools Group led by Christy Walker.
And I am Ashley Lauer. I am the behavior specialist for the Safe and Healthy Schools. So we are just here to give
Brief report.
a brief update on.
This is the same one that was this morning.
Yes.
This
This is a little briefer of an update, but yes. Oh, I just broke the system. I apologize to
We have
everyone.
them on our screens.
We have it on our
We do have them, and other people
Okay.
can pull them, so we can.
We'll just tell you when we slide.
Okay. No, we can see it.
Yeah, so we just wanted to.
There it is.
Perfect. Thank you. Easy fix. So just a reminder that the school-based mental health qualified grant program gave USB money to distribute to the local education agencies specifically for hiring qualified personnel to provide the school-based mental health support. That it included school counselor, other counselor, school psychologist or other psychologist, school social worker, other social worker, school nurse, or contracted services. So David will talk a little bit about, this slide was presented previously as projections and then some other.
Very briefly, I'll just share this. This was shared, I believe, with the board in September. Initial projections, 9 of the 41 districts signed up, 3 regional centers and charters. Go to the next slide. These are the qualified personnel that are funded by HB 373. So 80 school counselors, 59 social workers, 26 contracted services, and then it continues nurse, school psychologist, clinical health, mental health counselor, family therapist, and then the board certified.
Looking for just initial, or initial how the spending has been. We've 12.3 million was paid out as of December 2018. And then again, there was 185 qualified personnel that were reported as being funded by House Bill 373. And then 26 of our LEAs were contracted. As we move forward, we'll have an accountability report where we'll have some more really specific data on how this has impacted students, as well as really what that increase of baseline and FTEs for the qualified personnel, and that will be coming at the end of the school year.
Questions? I do have one because it was asked this morning. The 12.3 million was paid out in December, but there's still some that needs to be paid out. Because
Yes.
that is, because there's 14, right? And 1.5 goes to Save You Too.
Correct. So there, There are a few LEAs who have had some difficulty with hiring.
That's right.
Given
I couldn't remember the reason
instance.
from this one. Okay, and so that'll come out some point. Right, excellent. And is the ask on this so that we can get more schools? Like we have 39 districts, and some of them couldn't qualify. Why couldn't they qualify again? Because of the match? Is that right?
There was two different LEA or two different districts, and one was being supported by the regional service center. And that the match was difficult, but they're already being supported in that way.
Okay. And so we'll probably get more if the funding.
Yes. And there have been some charters. There's been several who have already kind of expressed and been asking about this, the upcoming applications.
And the increase is to 26 million? Is that additional or just the increase from 14 million to 26 million?
So that will be the total.
Okay. Thank you. I'm trying to remember the slides from this one. All right. Anybody else have questions?
I just got a comment. We have
Okay.
to somehow have some kind of celebration on this, because this is legislature, and then bam, it's like go, 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 go. Stars aligning, get it out. LEAs got on board. Wake up call. Legislature and the community, the whole education community, on what's important. Everyone stepped right. It just got right in line and got in the game. That happened, and heard, made the procurements that they need, or the acquisitions of them. Amazing, and some people say government is slow. And I'm sure if we get an audit, we'll find out we did something wrong along the way, or something to happen. But kudos to everybody that's got their fingerprints on it, all the way down to LEAs. That's a part of it, but it's not celebrating it because that need, it's just step up and get it addressed in a very quick, efficient way.
Anybody else? Thank you so much, and thank you for your work too.
High five to everybody on it.
Thank you. Now, did we miss any, Cammie? Did we miss any? I just skipped around.
Well,
we have one.
Okay, we're on 8.5, and we have 30 seconds to get this done. I'm just kidding. Huh? Yes. Yep, to so many people. That's exactly right, Sean.
Faster.
Okay, so we are on 8.5. This is an actionable item. So, can you help us out?
Yes, I'm gonna try. So
it's freezing down here now.
It is cold. So down in the student advocacy services section of the Carry Forward spreadsheet, very first program that they have there, the EDEQ. She's reprioritizing her carry forward and would like to ask. She uses the remaining $293,680. What she's doing is she wants to align, if I get this right, she wants to align both federal school improvement and state school improvement turnaround together. And so in order to do this, she wants to create a new position, which would be a Director of School Improvement Center, to create this basically center to include state and federal programs together. She wants to have enough carry forward funds to cover 2 years worth of salary during this time of basically exploratory, what does it look like, how does it feel, and that also will include funding piece to that as well. So that's about all I can really give.
The alignment makes sense, that we
Yes.
do how we do our ESSA program and our turnaround and tie them together. But I do have a question. If she's looking for a 2-year, when is she going to hire this person? And is it going to, do you know anything about those dates?
Well, kind of. So she would like to maybe start the interviewing process somewhere in March. But she doesn't anticipate that anybody will be able to start until July 1st.
Oh, okay. And what bad did you say about Leah? What was that?
Great. I did my best. I hope I didn't slaughter it for you. You did fantastic.
Okay, so the money would go, you'll interview now and then start in July 1, and then you'd like it to carry for 2 years, this amount of money. And then you're going to put in a business plan.
He's assistant superintendent of student support. Yes, and tiny possible difference. If you approve the change to our carry forward spend plan, we'd advertise immediately. We doubt we would get anyone till July because we're looking for like a dynamo principal, right? And we wouldn't want to disrupt a school. We not like to do that to LEAs. But if someone could come, in June, or spend a couple days with us in June, before the school year's out, we would take them earlier. But yes.
Why a principal?
Because what we're looking at is school improvement, school building improvement, right? So, it might be somebody who was a Dynamo principal and is now central office, right? But yeah, we're looking at somebody who has some
building leadership.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions on that?
One more funding source. So down in the SAM budget.
In the what budget?
It's AMM, or it's the AM program. It's down.
Oh, just one line.
Yeah. So they've got $287,000 that's set aside for their remodel, and we're not anticipating that it's going to cost that much. So I'd like to also utilize what's left out of that funding to go.
So I have a question. Whose budget is this Sassman your budget in? And you were going to that amount in there. Now
We're going to use as much of it as we need to remodel the student support section. We have to decrease the size of the cubicles so we can increase the number of cubicles because we have more staff than we have space. And at the same time, wonderful Cami is going to replace the carpet and repaint since we're going to pick the cubicles up anyway. So, but it looks like it's not going to cost this much.
So whatever's left, so will you tell us what that is when it happens? I don't see a problem with that if you're don't have to use it since you're painting the carpet.
I'm not personally doing it.
You're not?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were. That would save us a lot of money. Well, maybe not. So, okay, do you have any questions on this, anybody? Problems? Okay, we're seeking a motion. Yeah, Sean's making.
I move that we accept the carry forward spend plan school year to forward to the board, correct?
Or kind of, that's it. For the, no, I think you've got it. It's for the student advocacy services.
Advocacy services.
And from the SAS. Okay.
It's AAM.
Okay. Okay.
And do we need to do contingents on someone finding out what the balance is gonna be after the renewal.
But I think we'll just let them, yeah. If it, whatever they have, if it's $5, if it's 5,000.
To your board for first reading or for
Yeah.
consideration? For first reading.
Looking for their approval. Any questions? None, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So excited. I tried.
I know. The sass and mass and.
Was
so,
like-
Thank you, everyone. We're sorry we were
Thank you,
so
Michelle.
long today. Thanks, Shell.
Thanks, bye.
Well, that was good timing because I just finished in standards of assessment. Thank you.
You got big plans, Scott?
No, just head home.
R&R?
Yeah.
The Crown, watching The Crown.
Well, thanks, everybody. Miss
Hey,
Laura, I'm gonna borrow my jacket back.
No.
I'm gonna head out. Do you need it?
no, I
Maybe
have
next
a,
week.
no, I have a jacket.
Hey, thank
It
you.
did feel good.
I couldn't, sorry, I was deflected on that. I just couldn't
No, I
understand what we
couldn't
were
get it
supposed
either.
to.
I couldn't get it either.
I thought it was big. I made it bigger than I thought.
No, you didn't make it bigger. I couldn't get, there were 10,000 pieces and you wrangled them, which was